as it is with many people with ADHD, it just turns out that I'm really good at talking to strangers, and I'm really naturally curious about people, and I have no shame. Like, I'm not good with boundaries. So I was a great fundraiser because I had no problem talking to people, chatting them up, and then asking them for money. Right. And so I have that really good ability to do that. And then when we were in a band, like, my husband very early on was like, we need to make money. Like, we need to think of this as a business. We need to think of this as a commodity. Like, and over the years, we found a few really successful formulas because it's really hard to make money as an original band, but it's even harder as like a niche band, like when you're playing punk rock, because you're marketing to a very small and very poor audience.
ADHD Rewired, episode
298.
This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups, and you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Dusty Chapora. Dusty also, last stage name, I love how I botch the interview. So before I even read Dusty's bio, I just want to say that it's 6:17 p.m. Central Time. I typically don't record podcasts after 2:30. My meds have worn off, which is why we haven't even gotten through Dusty's bio. But let me continue. She's an ADHD coach, mother, and musician from Vancouver, BC. Formerly the front person for punk rock band Kill Matilda. Dusty is one of the founders of the girls' rock camp, La Paz. Did I say that correctly?
La Paz.
La Paz.
That's okay. Good try.
Thank you. A for trying. I'm a good trier. In Baja California. That's a typo. I was just trying to read it how it was written.
You're doing great.
Was it Sur, Mexico?
Yeah, in the province of Baja California Sur.
Oh, I got it. I love it. I'm totally keeping all of this in. Dusty lives in a suburb of Vancouver with her husband, daughter, Melody Sue, her bird, Professor, and her dog, Hemingway. How'd I do?
Excellent.
All right. Well, I met Dusty at this year's CHAD conference, and we shared some fajitas with it was you and Jessica McCabe and Danny Donovan, whom hopefully we can be having on the podcast very soon, and others. And I know I wanted to have you on the podcast, so we've just been spending the last 40-ish minutes, 50 minutes. Talking, because usually I usually do a pre-interview, but sometimes the ADHD wins, and I realized that I didn't have any podcast interviews in the can, and so Dusty is saving the day. Thanks, Dusty.
You're so welcome.
Okay, so let's dive in. Tell us your ADHD story. When were you diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed in my mid to late 20s, I think.
And what was going on then?
Yeah. So my brother was like the stereotypical ADHD kid, super hyper, on Ritalin, all that stuff. And growing up, my dad was always it took us forever to get anywhere because he'd be like, just let me do one more thing before we leave the house. And then we would all be sitting there waiting for 45 minutes. And I'd be like, it's time to go, Dad. Okay, wait, I just got to take a shower. Okay, wait, I just got to check this email, right? But I guess maybe people weren't diagnosed with ADHD back in the day. But then my brother's son was diagnosed with ADHD. And I can't remember exactly what was going on, but just in my mid-20s, my husband, who was then my boyfriend, I think he just said to me one day, yeah, you totally have ADHD. And I was like, what? No. And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, are you kidding or are you serious? He's like, no, I'm serious. So I'm like, oh, I guess I better get that checked out.
What was it that was going on that he saw that made him say that?
Probably just everything. I've always been like one of those people that's doing a million things at once and maybe doing them really badly sometimes, and not managing money well, not managing my time well, talking a lot, being really, really hyper and excitable. I don't know, just maybe everything, Okay.
All right. And so you went from...
I should ask him, really.
So what was it that you saw? And it sounds like you've lived a pretty interesting life. You said at some point you were living in a van. When was that?
Well, at a few points, but always consensually, always somewhat by choice.
Okay.
Mostly it was all related to being a touring rock musician, which didn't pay a lot and often required not having a job. So sometimes it was as a result of being on tour, which we did. And okay, everybody goes on tour, right? Like you can't say, oh, I lived in a van just because I went on a tour. But I mean, I lived in a van like for 6 months at a time. Wow. Like everything I owned was in that van. So I both toured and lived in the van.
How did you stay organized? Or was it not?
You know what? It was so much easier. I sometimes wish that I still lived in the van, to be honest, because I could only I had a little like box with all my makeup and sort of beauty stuff. And then I had like a backpack with my day-to-day stuff. And then we had like a little library where we kept like books and things to write in. And then other than that, I just had my gear. So like every day I just reset. Like I would dump everything out on the floor of the van and reset my backpack, much to the chagrin of my drummer and bass player, who were always like, stop doing that. But like I had to do it. It was my everyday, like I had to dump the backpack out, reorganize it, get rid of any garbage. And then I was good to go. Right. It was so few things to keep track of. It was great.
So was it all three of you in one van?
Yes.
Wow.
And then later Hemingway too.
What kind of dog?
He is a Shih Tzu. He's a what they call a Prapso Shih Tzu, so nobody knows. He's a secret Shih Tzu. He looks like a Tibetan Spaniel.
A secret Shih Tzu. I like
Wait,
that.
Look, do you want to see him? Wait, look, here.
This makes for great podcasting. I'll try to describe it.
Yeah. Okay.
Aw, he's got like really bug out eyes. Just kind of like, what are you doing with me? What? I was just.
So we were once at Granville Island and this guy was like, can I take a picture of your dog? I'm going to put it on Instagram. I've got this Instagram account. It's called The Doggist. And it turns out that he's like this really famous dog photographer. So Hemingway got like 60,000 Instagram likes and the comments were about equally split. Half the people said, oh, he's so adorable. And the other half the people said, he looks so weird. He's got a person face. Why does he look like a person?
I think that's kind of a cool comment, though.
Yeah. So he's got his own Instagram, too. You can follow him at #Hemingway Exner, spelled with one M only.
Got it. So since this is a podcast and people couldn't see the dog and they can't see you, just for a description for the listeners, Dusty has bright orange dyed. That's not natural, right?
No.
Right. Okay. So orange is it pink? I'm slightly colorblind.
It's orange.
It's orange. Tattoos. She just looks like someone that would be fun to hang out with because she has hung out with her. So she's an ADHD coach, musician, entrepreneur. Just started in the coaching world in about the last year. Mm-hmm. And something that you said to me before we hit record that I found striking was that you're just really trying to just get used to the idea of being successful because you said that's very new to you.
I did say that. Yeah, that's true.
I was watching the expression on your face as I was saying that. What were you hearing as I was saying that back to you? Or what were you feeling?
I was just listening for what it was that I said. Because what did I say?
It's, that happens to me where someone will be like, you said this thing. I was like, I totally believe you that I said the thing. I don't remember saying the thing. Yeah. So
I remember that it was something that I said about success. I couldn't remember exactly what.
So how does it feel to you that you're, I think in a very uncommon way, there's a lot of coaches out there, a lot of ADHD coaches that are probably listening to this and many maybe struggling in business. and you kind of hit the ground running, and you said that you're trying to figure out how to do it less because you started with just the intention of working part-time.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing like 40 some clients a week.
Yeah. I thought I would coach like one person. I was like, if I can coach 5 people a week, then I can pay the bills. And now I'm basically working a full-time job, but it's, that's fun.
Do you know how it happened?
Yes. It was very, it happened very intentionally because I put a lot of thought and effort into how I was going to market myself and get clients. Because if I didn't, then it would have been, it was like do or die, basically, right? Like we have a year-long maternity leave in Canada. We get a year and you get like half your normal wage when you're on maternity leave. So I had spent about like 3 years after our band like fell apart thinking like, what do I want to do with my life? And like really kind of in this like existential pit of anxiety. And then I was like, okay, I kept turning over like, what do I want to do? And then when I hit on ADHD coaching, I was like, I think I had just gotten pregnant, or I was like in my first trimester. And I looked into like training programs, and I saw that there was a training program starting in basically like a month, and it would end right as my maternity leave ended. So I was like, okay, the stars are aligned. Like the timing is perfect. I got to do this now if I'm going to do it. But it was not cheap. So I put probably about half of all my maternity leave earnings, plus when my baby was born, my child tax benefits, which we get monthly, into it. So I put a lot of money into it. And like, I had no idea if it was going to work or not. So I was like, okay, I have to make this work. But I think what helped me succeed is that for years in my band, my husband and I basically were just like marketing like vampires. Like anything we could learn about marketing and absorb, like about social media marketing, online marketing, like we did it, right? Viral marketing, like whatever, right? And so I think I had like learned a lot of things about, your branding yourself and connecting with people and how to build relationships and how to because playing in a band is all networking. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was also a booking agent. So while I was touring, I was booking like 5 or 6 or 7 other bands. So we were touring, and this one month I think I had 100 shows booked for 5 bands and 3 P2 visas that I was processing.
Wow.
So I had a lot of, I guess, like experience in building relationships and connecting with others. So I just basically took all that knowledge and then put it towards building my coaching business.
It sounds like a lot of people logistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd you do with that?
When? Then or now?
Both.
Well, then it was like fun, but really hard because I didn't really make any money. And now it's still really hard, but it's my job. So I am older and wiser, and I am smart enough to make the time for it, because I don't think I was then.
You're still playing music?
Yeah. I'm playing the banjo now.
From punk rock to the banjo. I love the banjo.
I'm playing like old-timey music.
Nice. What was the, as a musician myself, when I think about, the amount of music I want to be playing compared to what I am playing, it's that there's a longing, there's a emptiness in a lot of ways. I was kind of hearing that in your voice.
Yeah, I think my husband and I are always thinking about, should we get the band back together? It's like this ongoing, like, should we do it? Shouldn't we? And we haven't decided to do that yet, but it's always like right there,
What do you think it would take for you to do that, to move forward with getting music to be more of a front part of your life?
Great question, Eric. Thank you for asking. We've had this discussion actually, and it would take a lot of delegating and having a reliable team, which is what we didn't have, right? We only were able to rely on ourselves. We briefly were on a label, and we had, not a manager, but the guy who owned the label. And then he died actually, and the label, I guess, went away. And that was the only time that we had any external support. Everything else we did ourselves. Even like we had music videos, we shot them ourselves. We were like on TV, did it ourselves. We did all our own. No, that's not true. We had a PR guy briefly, but But what it would take would be for us to have people to do the things that weren't music so that we could just do the music, because doing all those other things was so stressful that ultimately like we just burned out.
Yeah. I mean, to be in a band when you're trying to make money, I mean, being in a band is a business. And I think that's something that a lot of musicians, creatives don't realize, that whatever their creative, medium is, if they're trying to make a living doing it, you got to think about it in the realm of the business of, right? The business of painting, the business of playing music. And so it sounds like that have you always sort of had that like understanding that the connection between the content creation and the business side of it?
So I think I have to really credit my husband for that, because he went to recorded music production school, and I guess maybe music business is part of what he learned there. But so I had a background in fundraising, which I fell into completely by accident. But as it is with many people with ADHD, it just turns out that I'm really good at talking to strangers, and I'm really naturally curious about people, and I have no shame. Like, I'm not good with boundaries. So I was a great fundraiser because I had no problem talking to people, chatting them up, and then asking them for money. Right. And so I have that really good ability to do that. And then when we were in a band, like my husband very early on was like, we need to make money. Like, we need to think of this as a business. We need to think of this as a commodity. Like, what are we selling? What are we marketing? And so he really put me to work. Like, was kind of the mastermind. He would come up with like campaigns and fundraisers, and he'd be like, okay, now we're gonna sell this, and we're gonna do this tactic, and like this is how we're gonna make some money. And he would say, okay, you do it. Like, he would come up with it, but I was the one who had to do it. And over the years, we found a few really successful formulas because it's really hard to make money as an original band, but it's even harder as like a niche band, like when you're playing punk rock, because you're marketing to a very small and very poor audience. So when we found those strategies, I think we like tapped into them really deeply. And that's what led us to be, frankly, more successful than a lot of DIY touring bands. And that doesn't mean that we made a lot of money, but we managed to keep going for 6 months at a time, for years at a time, sometimes only literally with like $20 to get us to the next show and like a hope and a prayer, but like we still got there. Right.
Do you miss that life?
Yes.
Yeah. You also said that that your ADHD caused you to fail as a musician.
Yes. So that's yes and no. Like I miss that life, and I don't, because it was so stressful. But I think if I did it again, I would do some things differently. I recently was thinking about how, like, one of the things that a lot of my clients talk about is, and that I talk with my clients about, is like, sometimes there's something that's not boring, like something that you like to do, but it feels boring and you don't want to do it. Like, when you think about doing it, it feels boring. So for me, that's like riding my bike. Like, when I think about going for a bike ride, I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. And then once I get on my bike and I'm riding, awesome. I'm like, this is the most amazing feeling in the world. Why don't I ride my bike 20 times a day? Right. Like going to the gym, cooking. There's lots of things that I often don't want to do. And then once I start doing them, I really enjoy them. And practicing was something like that for me. I really had a hard time practicing. Jam spaces were often small and too hot or too cold. And like, I had to go at everyone else's pace, and I couldn't do what I felt like doing. And I had to pay attention. And often I'd be like noodling around, not paying attention. And we would be there for hours, of course. Right. And like after 45 minutes, I was done. I was like, when I think back on weekly practice sessions, jam sessions, they were like so painful for me to get through. But I loved playing the music and I loved being on stage, but practicing was really hard. So I didn't do it. And I frankly think I could have been a much better actual musician had I learned or known how ADHD impacted me, and maybe learned some strategies to engage with practicing more often, This has actually come up in a number of conversations recently that I've had about just how hard like practice is in different contexts. I was talking to Brendan Mahan of ADHD Essentials, and he was talking about, he's really into martial arts, and he struggles with practicing. I was talking to someone, I don't remember who else it was I was talking to, just the idea of like the type of sort of repetitive nature of what practice
it requires is fundamentally really averse when you have ADHD. Do the same thing over and over again to build those the skill and the proficiency and the mastery around what you're trying to do.
And so like what I love about playing the banjo now is like I will just take it out for 10 minutes and play it. It's like one of the things on my habitica, like play banjo 10 minutes a day. And honestly, I've gotten so much better at the banjo from just playing it 10 minutes a day. But you can't get everybody over to your house and then like plug in all the things and strap on all the, and tighten all the doodads and then just practice for 10 minutes, right? People want to get a good couple hours out of that. And I was so bored by that. And then the other thing is that like I really only learned in the last few years about emotional dysregulation and ADHD, and being in a touring punk rock band was like constant drama. I was constantly feuding with someone else, like someone in another band or like some fan who said something or like some haters in another. Like there was constant drama that was distracting me and I think really unhealthy for me. Obviously there was like a lot of drinking, which was great, but also like hard. And then like just the nature of having to manage so many different aspects of being in a band, right? Like the booking, the marketing, the graphic design, the website, the social media, and then the actual like playing of music. I think if I could go back and do it again with the understanding that I have now of ADHD, I could compartmentalize those things better so I didn't feel so constantly overwhelmed, And so I think not managing those things well is ultimately what led to us not succeeding more, but then also what led to us like breaking up.
I know when I used to play in bands, and one of the things I hated the most, because I played keyboards, and I used to play on like a 4 keyboard rack, and like I hated the setting up, and I hated even more the tearing down after a gig. Like it was just like I wanted to play the harmonica, right? It was just like the only person in the band I had worse was the drummer, because it was like, oh man, he has so many knobs to turn and things to unscrew and detach, and and I didn't, when I was in college and I was doing more, I was playing a lot more music. I really didn't connect that as like this is like a lot of executive functioning, a lot of sequencing, a lot of like, multi-step things that you gotta do it the same way each time, and you gotta do it correctly if you want it to work. And, I once had, I left one of my keyboards in my car for a while, and I don't know if this was just, I don't know what happened. The back window of my car got smashed. Oh
no.
And so I had a keyboard that wasn't in a case. And so I had a gazillion little pieces of glass that was in the keyboard. And this was the keyboard that I referred to as the Beast. It was a Kawai MP 9000. So I'm nerding out on this for a moment. It was a 88 wood keyboard. This thing I threw my back out at least 3 times carrying this keyboard.
Wood keyboard.
Yeah. Wow. So it like had the actual feel of a piano.
Yeah.
God, this thing was heavy. Oh my gosh. This is probably why I left it in the car, because I'm like, I don't think my back wants to do that today. So word of caution, don't leave your instruments in the car.
Do you need to do that thing where we take a break? Because I notice your little timer is timing down.
This is great how we support each other. Dusty's helping me.
I didn't know if you forgot, because you said
I didn't forget. I was
okay.
Yeah, it was. I actually had the thought like 3 different times of no, I'm just engaged in the conversation. So I'll just keep going, and that's total break failure with ADHD. So we're going to take this moment to now take a break, and we will be right back.
I joined Eric's ADHD Rewired coaching group because I recently discovered ADHD was the very likely culprit for the struggles that I've had my entire life. And I spent the first 6 weeks just gathering all of the information that I could, trying to find out what ADHD is, what it's not. And in that process of research, I came upon Eric's podcast and was very drawn to it. I binge listened to it for probably 2 to 3 weeks. And I just really identified with the guests and with Eric's approach. And in that, there were always ads for the coaching group. And I thought, I think this is what I need. I need to be around people who get it, who are like me, and who really want to do the work to learn and grow.
And maybe you're feeling that way too. The end of another year is fast approaching. It's a chance to start something different this new year. Sarah joined one of our past coaching and accountability groups and feels more in control of her life. We are filling up fast as our registration kickoff event was a huge success. We only have 11 spots left, and that could change by the time this podcast comes out. Our second registration event will be on December 5th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Give yourself the gift of community and growth. Give yourself the gift of ADHD, rewired coaching, and accountability groups.
Over the last 2.5 months, I have learned so much about myself. I feel like the other members of the group serve as these amazing mirrors of myself, right? We share similar struggles, but at the same time, I can look at them and see what their individual strengths are and see myself in that as well. And, the combination of the big group meetings combined with our amazing accountability teams, I don't even know. I know how to plan my day now. I do that on a daily basis. I plan my weeks. I plan my months. I'm going to start planning my quarter. And I even made my first plan for next year, which is something that I would never even have considered.
As we are now entering the holiday season, consider giving yourself the gift of coaching. Go to coachingrewire.com and click on the big purple button. Coming to our registration event will be a little bit like ripping off a little bit of that wrapping paper off that gift just to take a peek at what's inside.
I feel like I'm more in control of my day. I know what I'm having for dinner. So many ways that I can't even articulate here. And I think that one of the big takeaways is that now I have come to a new understanding and acceptance of myself, where my strengths are and also where my struggles are. And just having that awareness and being able to articulate that helps me in my family. It helps my relationship with my husband.
What parts of your life could be helped with the support of ADHD, Rewired's coaching, and accountability groups? Go to coachingrewire.com. This is our 19th season of coaching and accountability groups. Our second registration event is only 9 days away if you're listening to this on the day it came out. And we are reaching full capacity in that event as well. Stop what you are doing and go to coachingrewire.com and click on the big purple button. Our second and probably last registration event will be on December 5th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern.
And the amazing thing that's happened by understanding what I'm really great at and what my limitations are is that I have this newfound sense of freedom. Right? So the things that used to trip me up, they don't anymore, because it's almost like I've given myself permission to make those mistakes. And another big difference is, I think before I used to personalize my mistakes, and, I wouldn't be like, oh, I made a mistake. It's, I am a mistake. And I don't feel that way anymore. And I know that that's going to be a constant work in progress for me, but it's a battle that I'm willing to fight, and I know that I can do hard things. And that is just really, really, really incredible. Thank you, Eric.
These groups will fill up, and so will our registration events. Go to coachingrewire.com to learn more and click on the big purple button to register. Make sure you check your email to confirm your email. Winter sessions start January 10th and go through March 20th. Find out why at this year's CHAD conference, we were part of the Innovative Program of the Year session. Go to coachingrewire.com to learn more. That's coachingrewire.com. Registration is by invitation only, and you have to attend one of our registration events to join. Coaching groups fill up fast, so sign up today and join other people just like you. The website again is coachingrewire.com. All right, we are back from that very ADHD transition. As just a reminder, I'm not medicated. So hopefully we'll get, a good episode conversation here going. I think so far how we doing, Dusty? We doing good?
I think we're doing pretty good. I want to know more about what you play. You play the keyboard.
I do. I've been playing piano since I was like 4. And I too never really wanted to practice. So I took lessons for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, but I never actually learned to read the music. I just would, as long as my teacher played it once, I could play it. My teacher was a 8-bit video game. Whatever I had on Nintendo, I would get bored of playing Nintendo, and then I would figure out all the theme songs to the games that I was playing.
I love that.
So that's how I learned to play piano. And I played trumpet for a number of years, and then when it was time to audition for the high school band, and part of the audition is you have to play a piece of music you've never seen before, I skipped out on the audition because I'm like, I am found out. My cover is blown. I think it was a combination of that. And then I was like, and you have to be at like rehearsal at like 6:30 in the morning. And I was like, nah, I think that I'm good. I'm trumpets. Goodbye. So, but I regret that. But I have been, I've been trying in the last, year or two, really trying to bring music back, in the forefront of my life. It's hard as a parent and business owner, and and my son is also pretty musical. But every time I'm home and want to play the piano, he either tells me to stop or he plays with me. I love it when he plays with me. Cause he reminds me so much of me, when I was his age playing. Like he can just hear it and he figures stuff out, and it's super cool to watch. And he's highly gifted. So it's watching his brain sort of work, in this realm is very cool. But yeah, it's, were you at the talent show for the Chat conference?
I was not. I was making pierogies.
You're making pierogies. So you missed my performance at the talent show. It is on my Facebook page, so you can check it out.
Okay, good.
And so I wrote an original song for the conference.
What?
And
oh my God, now I have to see this.
So I first wrote an original song for the 2014 ADA conference in Michigan, and it was a blues song, and it was the first time I had written a song in many years. And like it would just, they had this amazing grand piano, and the sound system was really good, and I was like, I want to like quit my job and just play music again. And that was like, I every once in a while had that like itch, or like something musically just like strikes me in such a way that it like completely takes over my brain. And, so every year since that conference, the 2014 conference, I had every intention of writing another song, and like the perfectionism just like kicked my butt, and I couldn't get a song out of my head. Like I had tried. So I just went with improvisation, and I just would go sit on the piano or the keyboard that they had, at the talent show, and whatever note I just happened to lay my hand on, and then I would do something in that key and just improvise.
There you go. And that's a great strategy.
Yeah. And so that's easy for me to do. Right. But so when I wrote this song for this year's show, it was real work, and it was hard. And I so enjoyed it. I so enjoyed the labor of crafting a song. And I've been making more space for music in my life. This year, I've been doing these improvisational, singing circles, that they have in the city with one of my friends, Nisha, who's been on the podcast like a while ago. It's been a while. Cause she has a beautiful voice. She's just amazing. And she's like my creative, like, idol. She used to work in IT, and now she's doing like stuff at Second City and all this music. And I'm like, I want to be like you when I grow up. And no, it's just been so, for me, music feeds me in a way that, I mean, I love my work. I feel so fortunate and grateful to do the work that I do, but there's nothing like music to me.
Yep. Music is pretty great. I'm glad to hear that you are finding ways to make more time for it, because it is hard, right? Especially if you're not in the habit. It's like any other habit that you want to make time for, but then you're like, oh, I got a million things to do.
and especially, not just being a business owner, but being a parent as well. And I know that you are also a parent. And I read a blog post of yours about parenting that I so appreciated. It was about how sometimes it's really hard because it could be boring to play with your kid. And that's a thing that I think is hard to talk about because people don't want to admit that.
I coached a woman who was really open about that, and it kind of helped me realize that I think that's something that, I don't know, maybe all parents struggle with that, probably, but I think it's harder when you have ADHD because it's very challenging to force yourself to do something that feels boring, right? But I really realized that I realized that I am always doing something in our house, right? If I'm not working, I'm cleaning, or I'm handling any number of things, and I'm never slowing down enough to just be, well, I don't want to say never, but I realized that it was very important for me to slow down enough to be on my daughter's level, because she's 1.5, and she moves slow and she's looking at everything very deeply, and she wants to play. She just wants to sit on the couch and play with your hair or something, right? She doesn't even need a puzzle or toys. She could just play with her big toe for 10 minutes. Right. So so I got to go at that speed. I got to remember to not be doing something else all the time, or I'm going to miss it. Right. So I started a little journal when my daughter was born, that my goal was to write down kind of a daily diary of the things that I noticed about her and just how life was. And I think I've written in it 6 times. She's almost 2 now, but I gave myself permission to just keep writing in it as I can, and to take as many pictures as I can, because I'm really scared of not remembering much about this time.
That you've probably heard the saying that the days are long, but the years are short.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so
true. It's true.
I have to stop what I'm doing and just get down on the floor and play with teacups, or I don't know, a roll of toilet paper or whatever,
And so how do you sort of manage your, that being mindful in that moment? What are some of the strategies that you use?
Yeah, well, it's part of the whole reason that I decided to work from home, right? I knew that if I had a job and I worked out of the house, it wasn't going to happen, because there's so much to manage in just having a home. And I'm, I think as a woman, it's really hard for me to step away from needing to keep the house clean and needing to schedule the doctor's appointments and all sort of the emotional labor stuff. So I knew that by, first of all, working from home, I was giving myself my best chance at being present for my child. And one of the things that's really helped me is doing stuff out of the house with her that's our stuff. So going swimming, or going to a little community center class, or there's a mom drop-in group, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of parents don't take advantage of those. But I think if you have ADHD, the advantage is you're physically changing locations. And so you're really doing that transitional piece where you're okay, now I am in spending time with my kid mode, and that's what I'm here to do. Whereas at home, there's a million other things that could be constantly getting in the way. And
your environment is just reminding you of all the things that have to be done.
Yeah. And so that, and then, I always try to nap with her, or at least lay down with her for a nap. So I get a couple minutes a day of just physical cuddling. And my husband has kind of been enforcing family mealtime, which is something that we, everybody says you should do that, and that's good. And it was always my intention, but it's helpful to have him kind of, say, okay, we're all sitting down for dinner together, no phones, that kind of thing. Right. But, frankly, there are times that I sort of can't. And so if I need to take a break, I get somebody else involved. I get her grandparents involved, or her dad involved. And, I just give myself permission to not beat myself up about not always being able to be present, I guess.
I think on your blog, you had said something about how your husband kind of was calling you out about doing everything else, but being present.
Yeah, he's not afraid to call me out. But that's good, right? Sometimes I need that as much as I don't love it. Sometimes he'll be stop what you're doing and sit down with the baby. And I'll be okay. Sometimes I need that firm hand to be okay, no, you don't need to unload the dishwasher right now. You don't need to do whatever it is you're doing. Like the baby wants to play, just play with her. Right. Cause sometimes I won't notice, or we'll be in the car and she'll be like, mom, sing this song. And I'll be like, I won't even hear it, you know? And I'll be like, what? Oh, sing a song. Okay, sure. Right.
Yeah. There's something else I wrote on your blog about like sleep with when you have a little one, and it was some comment about unless you have the kid that like doesn't seem to ever sleep. And you know what I'm referring to? Yeah. So like when I was a new mom, people were always like, oh, you know, don't expect to get anything done, and like just clear your schedule, and you're just going to want to sleep. And people kept trying to get me to not do things. Like they would want to do things for me. And I was like, no, like I am so cooped up. Like I need to do things. So like when my daughter was 2 weeks old, I took her to like, we have a community radio station here. It's cooperatively owned. It's called Vancouver Co-op Radio. I took her to like a radio training when she was 2 weeks old. Like I took her here, I took her there. I was doing like nonprofit work. I was starting the Girls Rock Camp La Paz nonprofit. I was starting my business, like, because a new baby naps like every 2 hours, or, you know, even in their first year, they're napping like 3 times a day. And sometimes it's nice to catch a nap, but that's also a lot of time that's dead. And when you're really like hyperactive like me, and you're in the house all day and you're not seeing people, you're not going to your job, like that's a lot of pent up energy, right? So I found it useful to actually use that time. And I think that may be different for like neurotypical people, because in my prenatal class, there was this like doula who was taking us through the prenatal class, and she was saying, I had this woman and she said that she was going to learn Italian while she was on maternity leave. And we all laughed at her and said, good luck with that. And I'm like, I could have learned Italian because like I started a charity, like, but you know, I had a couple friends who had babies around the same time as me, and they were like, I can't, you know, like they couldn't get out of the house for a coffee. They just had to stay home. Like it was too much for them. And they had to like kind of take that limit with their energy and their time. But I was like the opposite. I'm like, I have too much energy. Like I need more. Give me something to do, you know? And I think too, I think all of us as who are parents experience parenting differently. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that it is the hardest thing ever. Like it's because, you know, our kids don't really care about what's on our schedule or what we have kind of racing through our minds, or, you know, and we want to be good parents. And, when you catch yourself, Dusty, not, being present, how do you practice self-compassion?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely, to kind of relate back to what I was saying before, when my daughter was young, I really needed to do my own thing a bit to have energy for her. And now that she's like a toddler, she really like, it's really gearing up in terms of how much time and attention is needed. So, how do I practice self-compassion? That's a good question. I think I just like remember that my daughter really loves me, right? She really loves me and needs me. So when we do get to spend time together, I just got to like play with her, right? Like I don't have to sit on the floor for an hour and like make believe with dolls, or like watch Paw Patrol for the like 100th time. Like, you know, as long as
Paw Patrol, they're on a roll.
As long as, you know, there's times throughout the day where I stop what I'm doing and I just give her my whole focus, and I just like, that's the thing about ADHD, right? You're the fun parent. You've got a lot of energy. You're very playful. You're very childlike. This is what they say about parents with ADHD, right? So I just bring that energy to her and like, you know, chase her around the house and like bite her on the toes and like tickle her. And like we're very physical, like we wrestle a lot. And so I try to just bring that energy to her. And then even if I'm not able to be present all the time, I just remind myself that like those little moments are what count, right? It's like going back to practicing. You don't have to practice like 3 hours a day. If you can just get like 10 minutes on the banjo, you're going to improve, right? If you can get little moments throughout the day with your kid, like at mealtime, at bedtime, like that's what's going to count for them, right?
It's funny when When we first started before we hit record, you had said to me that you had meant to change the light bulb in your room, and it's going to get darker and darker, and you're wearing a black shirt, and so
I'm like a floating head.
You're kind of like you become a floating head. That's great. Just the light from the screen.
Yeah.
I want to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about, I don't even know what. We'll find out, though, when we get back. Thanksgiving is just a few days away, and it's a time for me to give a heartfelt thank you to all of our patrons who support this podcast by giving a monthly financial contribution over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Patrons like Arlette, who became a patron this week. Thank you. I'm so grateful for your support. And if you are able to give $25 a month or more, you will get access to join us for a group coaching session every month. As all our hearts are grateful for so many things this time of year, if you love the show and you count on it each week, why not give a gift that makes sense to you? Check out the perks starting at $5 a month. And remember, you can join me and a small group of other patrons every fourth Tuesday of the month for a group coaching call on Zoom if you support us at $25 a month or more. We have one today, November 26th. We do these calls at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on every fourth Tuesday of the month. Whatever your reason for giving and whatever the amount you can give, thank you. It really does help, and it really does mean a lot. Become a patron at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And I hope that you and your family have a happy Thanksgiving if you are in the U.S. And I am thankful for every single one of you. Keep on doing hard things. And thanks for sharing this podcast and for being a part of this community. Don't miss the next monthly live Q&A on December 10th. Do you need some help? Have questions you want to ask? Well, then join me, Brendan Mahan from ADHD Essentials, and Will Kerb from our newest podcast, Hacking Your ADHD, as we answer your questions live. We do this every second Tuesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 Eastern. This is a great way to be part of the community. To register for our free Q&A, where we will answer your questions, help you with your challenges, and everything else, go to ADHDrewired.com/events. That's ADHDrewired.com/events. We'll see you there. Yesterday's episode of Hacking Your ADHD with Will Kerb, the title of his episode was Prioritizing Self-Care for a Better Holiday Season. It's strategies for getting through the holidays with less stress. So in this episode, Will actually recommends that we prioritize self-care as a way to have a better holiday season. As we head into this busy time of year for most of us, subscribe to this podcast and get these short, mindful ways to hack your ADHD. Will focuses on strategies for getting through the holidays with less stress. Check out Hacking Your ADHD this week and every Monday. Join Will as he explores ways that you can work with your ADHD brain to do more of the things you want to do. If you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor. Go subscribe to Hacking Your ADHD. These are fun, snack-sized podcasts that cover different ways to hack your ADHD. That's Hacking Your ADHD, part of the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Available to everyone, everywhere you consume podcasts. All right, we are back, and we're going to be here for about 10 more minutes, and we wanted to circle back to just talking about this idea of success and kind of what that really means to us as people with ADHD who, historically the success list might not feel like it's a long list.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because, yes, the struggle is real, but also a person with ADHD often doesn't know when they're successful or can't credit themselves for it, right?
Which is why I say we don't feel like the list is long.
Exactly. The struggle is real, and it's not real.
One of the exercises that I do in my coaching groups in the first couple of weeks is actually an exercise that I had adapted from Jack Canfield's book on what's the book called? It's like this huge, it's like this, the every self-help book you've ever wanted to read is like in this one book.
I better read that book.
Of course. I mean, I could blame the fact that my meds have worn off, but I would probably have forgotten it anyways. The Success Principles. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
I think it might be. So
what's the name of the person?
Jack Canfield.
Jack Canfield?
Mm-hmm.
Books.
Wait,
I'm Googling it. The Success Principles. You're right.
I was going to say there's total possibility that I've gotten both the author and the title, the name of the book wrong, but I'm glad to hear that it's right. So
yeah, you got it.
In the book, they talk about doing an inventory of your life successes and breaking the successes in your life into different lifespan domains, like from birth to like 15 to 30 and so on. And so I've sort of adopted this in my coaching group, and it's such it's so interesting because the real value in there is not just to list these successes, but it's to identify and to observe your thoughts while doing this exercise, and all the things that we maybe tend to discount or dismiss, or but so and so, and so we tend to not own the awesomeness of our successes.
Yep, that's super true. So I'm a big believer in like self-talk defines our reality. And just to nerd out a little, my background is in anthropology, and I had to get a degree in just general anthropology, but what I really wanted to get was a degree in either medical or linguistic anthropology. And what I like so much about linguistic anthropology is there's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which posits that language defines our reality. So like the way, if you are a person who has 16 different words for snow, you engage in the world a different way than a person who has like one word for snow, right? The way that you perceive nature and the weather might be like totally different, right? So the way that the words that we use with ourselves and with others are very powerful, which is why like when people kind of get a little venti about like, oh, PC culture, I think it's super important, right? Because if you say, look at that bum over there, look at that hobo, right? It has a different connotation than if you say, look at that homeless man, right? Like you bring different energy to those words, right? So, my dad, who definitely has ADHD, is this real, like, amazing guy. Like, he's been a boxer and a photographer and a machinist and a tow truck driver and a mechanic. And I think he got his pilot's license. Did I say he was a boxer already? Did I mention he was a motorcycle racer who won trophies for like racing? Like, he's this amazing guy with this, like, all these amazing super ADHD life stories. And when he talks about himself, he always says, I've never been the kind of person who can make a lot of money. Like when he talks about money, he always says, I never make a lot of money. I can't make a lot of money. I'm not the kind of guy who makes a lot of money. Right. And I've always kind of noticed that about him because I thought, oh, that's not a very nice way to talk about yourself. And then one time when I was in my early 20s, and I don't think he meant anything by it, but we were having a conversation and he said, you're like me. You're not going to make a lot of money in your life. And then he talked about my brother and he said, your brother can make a lot of money, but you're like me. You're not going to make a lot of money. And it was hurtful. In that, it was, he apologized. He didn't realize that he said that, but because I brought it up to him. But it was in that moment that I was like, I'm going to make a lot of money in my life. Like, that's it. I don't care how long it takes me. I'm going to make a lot of money. Right.
Maybe your father was so wise that he knew he had to say that to you in order to change that reality.
Maybe. And what a lot is also very subjective, right? Like,
Sure.
What's a lot of money to me as a person who grew up very, like in poverty and in low income situations? To me, a lot of money is like enough money to pay the bills and then some, enough money to give to charity, enough money to like invest and go on vacation. And that's what a lot is to me. Right. I'm not talking like private jets, billionaire type of a lot money. Right. But, having sort of scraped and scrimped to just get the next $50 in the gas tank that I needed to get to the next gig, having embarked on this business and being able to like actually help people, right? Like I wasn't sure, like, is this coaching thing for real, or is this like, is this actually going to do anything? Right. And actually being able to genuinely connect with people and like really, really help them is like super meaningful for me. And being able to ask a price for that service that people are happy to pay, that they're willing to pay, and that they understand the value of, is like really empowering. And to know that like that's okay. There's like nothing weird or shameful about that, and like to be okay with like I'm like feeding my family, right? Like I'm succeeding. I have enough clients. I'm in a time of plenty, and that's like a really unusual place for me to be in. And it's like kind of weird. Like I'm not ashamed of it, but I also don't know how to talk about it because I don't want to come across like I'm bragging, but I also don't want to be like weirdly, people are like, how's your coaching business going? And I'm like, I don't know, I think it's good. Right. But I want to be like, it's going great. I'm so happy. I'm living my best life. Like I want to, I'm super happy with how things are going because it's meeting those two big needs that I have. Not only is it helping me feel like I'm doing something meaningful, but I'm also paying the bills. So I'm really, really lucky that I found the right thing, the right fit for me, because that's hard to find, So
it sounds like you are very cognizant of your internal dialogue and the importance of self-speech. Have you found any kind of disconnect or dissonance with the way you want to be thinking about yourself and when you're finding that success? As I like to refer to in my coaching groups, has the itty bitty shitty committee showed up and tried to make you feel shitty for some reason around success?
Oh yeah, like I think imposter syndrome is for real, right? There's lots of times where I'm like, what am I doing that that somebody else can't do? Like, do I really have anything unique to offer? There's so many ADHD coaches out there. Like, who do I think I am, right? And I think it was a bit weird being at the CHAD conference too, because there's a lot of coaches there and a lot of coaches like are hungry, right? Straight up. Lots of coaches are hungry. And I don't know. And then like, there's people there that aren't coaches. So there's like a weird dynamic a bit, right? It's like, are you fishing for clients here? Like, what are you doing here? Mm-hmm. I don't know. And I was just there to learn. So I think I had a little bit of like imposter syndrome, like at the conference for sure. I was like, what's my place in all this? Like, here's all these people who've written books and they're giving talks and like, where do I fit in? Right. But
how did you respond to those kinds of thoughts when you were having them?
It's helpful to remember that I'm still really new, right? So being in a learning mindset and like being curious, right? Yeah. Like one of my strengths is my curiosity. So returning to a place where if I'm curious and I'm learning, then I'm not worried about judging myself, right?
That's so important.
Yeah. And I feel like I was going to say something else, but I forgot.
If I had a dime for every time that happened. So I had a slide in my presentation that talked about imposter syndrome, and it was a pie chart, and it's like, so this is a very unscientific pie chart, and it was a third of it was the people who identify as having imposter syndrome, and then the other third was the other people who also have imposter syndrome, and then the other third was basically everybody else who has imposter syndrome. Yeah. And it's the idea that we all it's the same thing around shame. Like if we feel this thing because we feel we're the only one, but when we realize, holy crap, like not only are we not the only one, like almost no one doesn't experience this, but if the only way to really sort of normalize it is by talking about it and realize that we're all doing the best we can, and we all have holes in our knowledge and skills, and that doesn't mean that we are not of value, and it doesn't mean we are not worthy of, whether it's in our business of, charging what we charge or doing what we do. So I think that's I think just being very mindful of that internal speech and connecting that to kind of how we show up is it's something to manage and monitor.
And something we were talking about before you turned on the recording is we were talking about like people's relationship to money. And this is something I coach people a lot on too, because I feel like when you have ADHD, you're used to giving away stuff for free because you're a people pleaser, right? Like a lot of people with ADHD will go above and beyond for other people.
It's not just people like leaving their shit everywhere and then they're like, whose is this? I don't know. It's mine now.
No, like people, they really want to help. We really want to give. We give to others. And so because we're used to giving so freely, I think maybe it's weird to put a value on that time and effort and say, well, actually, this is worth money, right? Like we're so used to giving so much of ourselves for free. So, and I was telling you, I really liked that book by Jen Sincero called You Are a Badass at Making Money. It really helped me to address some of those like kind of deep held beliefs that I had about like money is gross, or like wanting success is gross. And it's not okay to like say that. But like, I really, and maybe there's something here too around coming from a low income background. I don't know, but like, I really want to help people like make more money and be more successful and like really understand that they have the tools like to be successful. I think that's like really important. And like, it's really fun to help people be more successful. Yeah. Also, this moment in history this week on Twitter, #Fartgate. Eric Swalwell, one of your American politicians, was talking on the news, and there was a sound, and people were theorizing that he farted live on air. And while we were talking, I kicked a bag down by my feet. So do not fartgate me. I did not fart on your show. I kicked a bag with my foot. It's dark in here. I can't see what I'm doing.
Because I know that was your biggest fear, to be the first farter on the podcast.
Was it my biggest fear or my biggest hope? If I had dealt it, I would claim it. I would proudly tell you that it was me. You don't play in a punk rock band for 9 years and not get really good at ripping loud ones.
I can't. Oh my God. My brain just like, what inappropriate joke are you going to come up with that you're going to then go, why did you just say that? But then my brain just went blank because I was like, like usually I'm pretty good at coming up with puns until I put pressure on myself to come up with a clever pun, and then my brain goes blank.
Yeah.
And sometimes when that happens,
they just slip out when you're least expecting them, right?
I hate it when it's just like it's just silent.
Did you see what I did there?
I did. And then I added to it because it was silent. Oh God! All right, so this is the point where we say, Dusty, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to find out more about you, your blog, your music,
the 3 YouTube videos that I made 3, I think so far. I'm operating at an average of 1 YouTube video per 6 months.
Keep it up. And where can they find those things?
So my website is VancouverADHDcoaching.com. And I'm on Twitter at Dusty Exner. That's EXNER. I have a Facebook page. It's just Vancouver ADHD Coaching. And I should probably like link the YouTube stuff to all that. If you just go around those things, you'll find the things.
And if you send me links, I'll post it on the show notes page, which will be, which because I didn't have any episodes in the can, I actually know that it will be at ADHDrewired.com/298. Wait,
I'm going to fade into the background really creepily.
I wish you guys could see it. It's pretty awesome. It's just like a floating head. This has been Eric Tivers, Unmedicated, and thank you for listening to the end. We'll be back with you next week with another episode with medication on board. But maybe you like this better. I don't know. It feels more tangential and random, and I'm just glad I could finish a couple thoughts, and because that's what happens to me when my meds wear off, is I don't finish sentences and I lose track of my train of thought. And, it's like I have ADHD. Dusty, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find summaries and additional resources for each episode. You can apply to our free and secret Facebook community. You can learn more about ADHD Rewired's intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups, and sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. It's all at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click the Patreon button. If you're a regular listener and you're still listening to my voice, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron through our Patreon page. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to listeners, but it is not free to produce. And patrons get really cool perks. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. You can also subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube. And you can subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube and see select interviews and some other videos I've posted. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends and your family and your clients, as well as your coaches, therapists, and doctors. And if you're a coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader, and you would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at my website, ADHDrewired.com. And if you're a member of CHAD or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this podcast. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. You know, you might be the person that turns somebody on to a podcast for the very first time. And if you really love this episode, please consider hitting share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I count on you to help me spread the message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and to help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, or any other podcast app that accepts ratings and reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe on this podcast on your podcast app so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Not sure where to start? In no particular order. Check out Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk, 10% Happier, and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. These are both by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions and Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Vaden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. Do you have trouble asking for help? Listen to The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's one of the best produced audiobooks I've ever heard. If you're looking for something a little bit more, say, magical, I unexpectedly fell in love with the Harry Potter series. And I don't usually listen to those kinds of books, and I loved it. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus yet, check out Brene Brown's books, starting with The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader in any capacity, check out her 2018 book, Dare to Lead. And Brene still is my most wanted guest, so if you know Brene, and you would be so kind to make that connection for me, I would be really, really grateful. You know who else I would like to have on the show? You. Click the podcast tab at ADHDrewired.com and then click the Be a Guest button at the top of that page and schedule a 15-minute pre-interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep connecting. Self-care is not selfish, and no matter what gets done or doesn't get done, at the end of the day, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.